Before 2024, I had never seen a Rocky movie. Of course, I've seen many movies within the genre, but never the original. Until last year. I went in with low expectations, curious if the fight scenes were any good, curious if Sylvester Stallone's character of Rocky Balboa would be any good. All around, I was curious if any of it would hold up when so many stories today have done the underdog sports story so well. I've seen movies like this. I've seen movies newer than this, with bigger budgets, bigger actors, bigger ambitions, bigger visual direction through cinematography, and of course, bigger action. But, of course, most of us know bigger isn't always better. Rocky is proof of that, and despite all the similarities to other films in the same genre, Rocky is a little different. Rocky was the first. Or at least as far as I know. I'm sure there was some foreign film that already did this kind of story, but whatever, we're talking about Rocky right now because Rocky is relevant. You see, just like all the other sports movies, Rocky isn't simply about fighting, it's about overcoming, it's about persevering, and in my opinion, most relevantly, it's about earning. So let's talk about "1976's Rocky needs no introduction. Even if you haven't watched this movie, you've seen stories like it. It's an underdog story, and being the best you can possibly be, to achieve your greatest goals. It's a great message, and I think a lot of people, especially newer generations, myself included, will have the message go over their heads. And when you take a look back at how our society has changed from the 1970s to now, I think that's to be expected. You see, one of the key pillars of an underdog story is earning it, earning the success in the end. And unfortunately, earning is a term that, though still viable, has been fading, especially after the last 20 years. It's the double-edged sword of living in a world with great technological advancements. We all have to do less to gain. Earning is no longer the process of overcoming hardships. It's now the process of just making it by, just making it to the next day, just doing the bare minimum to continue breathing, but never aiming higher, never pushing yourself further. There was a time when anyone could be a pioneer in a way of achieving greatness. It wasn't easy, it's never easy, but now, with the world having already had so many pioneers paving the way for us, reaching new milestones, reaching the top bar of their respective careers, success, newly achieved glorious success, is rare. Now you either join the world of ever-evolving tech or even pharmaceutical companies, where you're able to achieve anything at the measly cost of a little humanity, or you could, like most of us, just scrape by, just pay the bills, just dream about your passions, but never dare to step out of your bubble to chase them. You could just exist. Our modern world has made earning trivial, with of course rare exceptions, but okay, I'm getting a little off topic. Rocky is great, and I didn't think that at first. I mean, I enjoyed the film, but I can't say I was as entertained as I was with other movies within the genre I've seen. For instance, 2011's Warrior, or 2004's Million Dollar Baby, or even a movie about a non-fighting sport like 2000's Remember the Titans. But that comes down to the fact Rocky is a slower-paced movie from a different time, and that's not to say it's any lesser. In fact, there's a reason it's a classic, and it isn't just because Sylvester Stallone has managed to stay relevant all these years later. No, it has to do with the music. A score so good, I could listen to it all freaking day. A track that, yet again, personifies the message. Through sound depicts repetition, overcoming, earning, and eventually achieving. Composed by Bill Conti. Props to that man. I seriously never got sick of that main theme. But even that, it isn't just about the music that makes this movie classic. It's also the vibes. That's a way to say it. Rocky is about vibes. I'm not sure if the lighting in this movie was fully intentional or it was because it was a smaller budget movie with only $1 million and having only been shot in 28 days. Either way, I think the lighting in this movie says something about Rocky himself. His struggle in this movie to find ambition, to shoot for the stars, to be the best version of himself. It's an internal struggle personified by the claustrophobic filming of the shots, by the dramatically hopeless lighting. If you want an example of this, look no further than the final fight of the movie between Rocky and Apollo Creed, a fight that, if it had been done today, would be loud and bombastic. Yet, besides Apollo's always grand entrance and the occasional murmur of the crowd in the background, for the most part, compared to nowadays standards, it's not. The color, the light, the sound of the crowd cheering, it's all subdued. Whether this was intentional or just a restriction of the time, no longer matters. The framing of the shots with the black background, it all adds to this feeling of an internal struggle that nowadays, it just wouldn't have been shot like that. The movie was made, and this is how we see it, how I choose to see it, regardless of budgetary constraints possibly being the reason that it's like this. Apollo is Rocky's final obstacle in the story. It makes sense Apollo is over the top and grand, besides the fact that that's how fighters are, and it makes for an entertaining film. If you view it in a way of metaphor and how it relates to our own lives, the fight becomes surreal. The obstacle is absurd, bigger than you, taunting you, daring you, confident you stand no threat. You're just an insignificant bump in the road. It seems like you don't stand a chance, as does it for Rocky despite how good he is. If you watch the final fight, you'll see Rocky gets punched in the face a lot. Like a lot. Rocky gets punched in the face over and over and over again. And I mean, it's not an understatement to say he gets hit a lot. And honestly, as far as professional boxers go, I am not very knowledgeable within that field at all. I've seen a little bit of fights, but the few fights I have seen, it seems like most people usually try to avoid getting hit by blocking or, trying to dodge. But Rocky doesn't. He takes the punches right to the face. Anyway, instead of saying it's bad editing, bad fight choreography, or making any foolish statement like that, I'm going to say this is a perfect decision for the movie. A movie about coming from nothing, earning your way up, taking on the best to become the best. I think Rocky getting hit over and over again in the face is perfect, because in regards to it all being a metaphor for being the best version of yourself, it's realistic. In life, at least for those who have to earn their way in life, life will beat you down. Life will punch you in the face over and over again to the point it becomes comical. That's why I actually think this works perfectly. Rocky's story of overcoming, of pushing on and enduring, of earning his way to the top is timeless. Alright, so talking about this movie in a little bit of a different light, Sylvester Stallone is great. I was surprised at how unique his character actually was. Like, he really had a personality. I don't know what else I expected. I guess my expectations were just low. But seriously, Rocky's tough, but he isn't the smartest. And by today's standards, he's not really normal at all. He's kind of awkward, but also really confident in himself. Which brings me to Adrian, played by Talia Shire, who is very shy and trapped in her own little bubble. Back to the metaphor thing I was saying earlier, you can think of Adrian as someone who has been beaten down by life, namely through Polly, and she's at the point where she's just getting by, doing the bare minimum to stay alive, just making it from one day to another. That is until Rocky comes in, and this was really funny to watch. You see, Rocky is very, very forward in this movie. Like, he saw Adrian and he just decided he had to be with her. And his advances definitely came off strong. Interestingly, in modern context, it's very uncomfortable to watch, but also kind of funny because it's just a different way of dating back then, I guess. I swear, I'm watching Rocky and Adrian in the apartment, and I'm just like, man, if I did what he's doing to a girl, I'm pretty sure the police would get called. I guess it's just different times, as I said. But it's either that or Rocky's just got Riz. Because seriously, he was really lucky Adrian actually wanted to be with him. She was acting so standoffish, I couldn't even tell what she wanted. Anyway, when Adrian does finally reciprocate and they do get together, things definitely feel more natural. I like the relationship. They're both different, and yeah, I like it. There isn't really many relationships quite like that. They're not really portrayed as the perfect couple, like super glamorous and good looking or anything like that. Both actors are good looking, I think, but you know, the way that the movie portrays them, they're not like the smartest, or you know, they're not prom queen and king kind of people, you know, they're just two lower class people who find each other. So when talking about these movies, I rarely hear people mention Rocky's original coach, Mickey Goldmill, played by Burgess Meredith. And I gotta say, I love this character. I mean, he's mean, old, passionate, and a character who clearly earned his position in life. Mickey put in the work, yet somehow, despite all that, at least as a fighter, he never reached the top, which ends up making him the perfect trainer. So props to Burgess Meredith for playing the perfect coach. So before I talk about Apollo Creed, I've got to mention Paulie Panino, played by Burt Young. And I have to say, man oh man, Burt Young, what a guy. He did a great job at playing such a mean bastard. I mean, Paulie is just the worst. And it really shows how great Rocky is, since he's able to stay friends with him despite the fact he very likely shouldn't be friends with him. But Rocky does it for Adrian, and also probably because Rocky is too kind for his own good. But yeah, Paulie treats Adrian horribly in this movie and the subsequent films. Maybe it's just because he's an alcoholic, but that excuse doesn't really matter that much. That being said, Paulie also has a place in the metaphor. In one way, he acts as Adrian's obstacle, an obstacle that, until Rocky arrives, has stopped her like a brick wall. On another hand, Paulie is a man who has completely given up on the idea of earning anything. He looks for shortcuts, piggybacks, exploits, and he does this just to get by. So while Adrian earned for herself by herself, Paulie, like a leech, sucks the life from others. Okay, so Apollo. You don't need me to tell you Apollo Creed isn't amazing. Watch any of his scenes and you'll see. Carl Weathers really brought his A game. He's such a fun character to watch and the perfect obstacle for Rocky to overcome. And on top of that, in this movie, he acts as a lesson. Apollo is someone who earned his way to the top and believed he was unstoppable. But that's the thing about life. No matter where you are in it, it can still knock you down. And that's a lesson repeated throughout all of the Rocky movies, no matter how successful Rocky is. Even if you earn your way to the very top, the fight isn't over. And that's what's so great about Apollo. If you take into account his role in Rocky 1, 2, 3, and of course 4, Apollo really goes on his own great character arc with an iconic conclusion. So yeah, rest in peace, Carl Weathers. So yeah, watching this movie for the first time has really changed my view on sports movies, especially this specific movie with its unique style, excellent message, and oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned the montage. The montage is, yeah, it's perfect. Though Rocky 4's is probably my favorite for the montage, but yeah, all the montages perfectly display the process of earning it, working your ass off to achieve something great. Repetition, training, all in the sake of earning. It all brings it back around, and of course, you know, Rocky is the movie that popularized montages, so that's pretty cool. And on that, I don't really have too much more to say about Rocky. It was a really good movie, really fun watch, and I'd really highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it or thinks it's just some old fighting movie that isn't worth watching. I'm here to tell you, it is definitely worth watching, so maybe give it a look-see. Anyway, if you made it to the end of the video, you're cool. If you didn't, then you wouldn't hear me saying this, but you're still cool. But yeah, if you're listening to me now, you're extra cool. And a way to become extra cool is through liking this video by hitting the thumbs up icon below. And a way to become extra cool is by subscribing to my channel. But if you don't, that's cool too. Seriously, I appreciate you regardless of anything. I really, really appreciate you if you have sat through my little cringe ending here. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see ya on the next one.